My name is Bexley, and I'm 29 years old. The morning of October 14th, I was sitting in my childhood bedroom at my mom's house, curlers in my hair, mascara half done, wedding dress hanging on the closet door like a dream I had worked toward for 2 years. My fiancé Daniel had been patient, kind, and everything my father never modeled for me. Tomorrow was supposed to be the most beautiful day of my life. Then, my phone buzzed. It was a text. From my dad. Not a call, not a letter, a text message sent at 7:43 in the morning that read, "If Marcus's kids aren't on that guest list, don't bother calling me your father. You've made your choice. We're done." I read it 4 times. My hands weren't shaking. I think I was too shocked for that. Marcus was my dad's new wife's ex-husband's children. 4 kids, ages 6 through 14, who I had met exactly twice at a backyard barbecue the summer before. I had nothing against them, but my wedding had a 60-person cap at a small venue, and Daniel and I had made every seating decision together, carefully, within our budget. We hadn't invited half of Daniel's cousins either. This wasn't personal, it was logistics. I had explained this to my dad 3 weeks earlier when his wife, Renata, first brought it up. I had been calm, I had been respectful. I even offered to host a separate dinner after the honeymoon so my dad's new blended family could celebrate with us. He had nodded, said he understood, said he was proud of me. That was the last real conversation we had, because the morning before my wedding, he chose a text message over his daughter. I put the phone face down on the vanity, finished my mascara, and told myself I would cry about it after the honeymoon. I didn't want to ruin my makeup twice. What I didn't expect was what happened next, and it happened fast. Within 6 hours, I started getting messages from people I hadn't heard from in months. First, my brother Theo. "Bex, you really couldn't add 4 kids to a list? Dad's devastated." Then my mother, my own mother who had been divorced from my dad for 11 years, texted me saying I was being selfish and that family comes first. Then my Aunt Carol, then Aunt Diane, then Aunt Meg, who I had always been closest to, sent a voice note that was 3 minutes of disappointment wrapped in scripture. 6 hours before my wedding rehearsal dinner, I was being tried by a family court I never agreed to stand in. I remember sitting in that bathroom alone, cold tile under my feet, phone full of messages I didn't ask for, and I made a decision in that moment. I was not going to collapse. I was not going to call my dad and beg. I was not going to shrink myself on the eve of one of the most important days of my life to make people comfortable who had never once asked if I was comfortable. I walked out of that bathroom, sat down at the rehearsal dinner table, held Daniel's hand, and smiled until the smiling became real. We got married the next day. It was small, it was honest, it was ours. My dad wasn't there. Neither were my brother, my mother, or my 3 aunts. 7 people I loved chose a man's ego over my wedding day, and not one of them called to apologize the morning after. I spent the first year of my marriage learning what peace actually feels like when you stop chasing people who only reach for you when it's convenient for them. I thought that chapter was closed. I was wrong. 2 years. That's how long the silence lasted. No birthday text, no holiday call, not a single message asking how I was settling into married life, whether Daniel and I had found a home, whether I was happy. 2 full years of nothing from the man who used to drive me to school every morning and call me his best girl. 2 years since he disowned me by text the day before my wedding because I didn't add 4 children I barely knew to my guest list. I had grieved it properly. I had cried in therapy, written letters I never sent, and eventually arrived at something that felt close to acceptance. My dad had made his choice. I had made mine. And my life, my quiet, honest, genuinely happy life with Daniel, had continued growing without him in it. Then, one Tuesday afternoon in March, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. It was my dad. His voice was different, smaller somehow. He skipped the apology, which didn't surprise me, and went straight to the reason he was calling. He and Renata were restructuring a property that had been partially listed under my name years ago, something tied to a family trust my grandfather had set up before he passed. My dad needed my signature on a legal document to release his portion of an asset so he could move forward with his retirement plan. Without my signature, the entire arrangement was frozen. His financial advisor had apparently been trying to reach me through my brother for weeks, but since Theo and I were also estranged, the message never arrived. My dad needed me. Not to reconcile, not to apologize. He needed one signature on one document, and his retirement depended on it. I told him I would think about it and hung up. I sat with that phone call for 3 days. Daniel didn't pressure me either way. My therapist reminded me that choosing not to sign was just as valid as choosing to sign, and that neither decision required me to pretend the last 2 years hadn't happened. My dad had disowned me by text. My mother, brother, and 3 aunts had piled on the night before my wedding. Not one of them had reached out since, and now the first contact in 2 years was a request, not a reckoning. On the 4th day, my dad called again. This time, he left a voicemail, 2 minutes long. He said he knew things had gone wrong between us. He said he wasn't calling to fight. He said he hoped I was well. And then, at the very end, almost like an afterthought, he said, "I should have handled things differently." 7 words. Not an apology, not accountability, but something. I called him back that evening. I did not pretend everything was fine. I did not comfort him or make it easy. I told him clearly and calmly exactly how that morning had felt. The text, the rehearsal dinner, the silence, all of it. I told him that his absence on my wedding day was not something I would minimize to make this phone call comfortable. I told him that if he wanted any kind of relationship going forward, it would have to be built differently than everything that came before. He was quiet for a long time. Then I told him I would not be signing the document, not out of revenge, not out of cruelty, but because I had spent 2 years learning that my peace was not a commodity. My signature, my time, my presence, none of it was available on demand from people who treated my heart like it was disposable. The 4 words I wrote back to his lawyer were simple and final. I will not sign. His retirement plan collapsed within the month. I didn't celebrate it. I didn't mourn it either. What I held on to was something much quieter and much stronger. The understanding that protecting yourself is not the same as being hard. Sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is simply stop being available to people who only remember you exist when they need something from you. I am Bexley. I'm 29 years old. I got married without my father in the room, rebuilt my life without my family's approval, and when the moment came, I chose myself, completely and without apology. If this story made you feel seen, if it reminded you that your boundaries are valid and your peace is worth protecting, then hit that subscribe button right now. Every week, we bring you real stories about real strength and the people who find it in the hardest moments. You belong in this community. We will see you in the next one.